everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Big Kris Live, the live stream, and then the podcast. I hope you do subscribe via Spotify or via Apple Podcasts or via something cool that's out there that I haven't heard of, but we're probably on it as well. And, of course, it originates via Facebook live stream. Thank you for joining me. And my guest on the screen behind me, you can see him. You can also see the logo, Humble and Fred Radio behind him. Humble Howard on the podcast. Thanks for being with us, man.
Wow. As I said to you just before we started, I was like excited that you asked me. Appreciate it. Always been a big fan of Big Kris and his work. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to only talk about you in the third person.
Oh, no.
How's Big Kris? Could you talk to Big Kris and ask him how he's doing? I love that kid. Hi, Big Kris. You look great, buddy. How you doing? You all right?
I'm great, man. You know, I feel guilty in saying this, but I actually had a good 2020. I still have a job. We're going to have a kid in April. I bought a sports car. I bought a new set of bagpipes. You know, I've kind of been just living La Viva Loca this 2020, and I feel guilty saying it, but I feel okay saying it to you for some reason.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. You're a positive character, but I'm also glad that in that list of things you're grateful for, that bagpipes didn't come before your kid. It's funny because I realize this year has been so weird for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, I was doing stand-up like right up until the week before the shutdown, but I never got up to Barrie this year. Mm-hmm. And that's how we know each other. We did stand-up together about 3 or 4 years ago we met. And I realized when you asked me to be on the show, I was like, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of Barrie people that I like that I didn't get to see because of this. And I think for me, like pandemically speaking, that was probably the biggest drag is I never got to see a lot of people that I normally interact with. But I'm the same, I was very lucky. We were talking about before the show, you've been to my studio that's in my house. So I'm, basically on the 13th of March, we just sent everybody home and started doing the show on Zoom. But me personally, I was already set up with a board, a microphone, everything was at my in my home already. And then Fred, our producers and guests, we've just been doing the show on Zoom since then. And I would ask you the same question. Like, have you noticed, like, there was a little bit of weirdness there for a couple weeks getting used to it. But other than that, like, I've just become sort of, it's almost easier doing the show like this. There's things about people I miss.
For sure.
But in terms of the ease of broadcast, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I feel guilty saying that in terms of my podcast. I mean, imagine, Howard, if you were to be here in person on my podcast, you'd have to literally drive, out of the city to Newmarket. That's multiple pain-in-the-ass highways for those who know GTA math. And like the hassle to come out and sit on the couch and do a podcast with me is a lot greater. And here we are. Literally, I talked to you yesterday about coming on the podcast, and you're like, yeah, how about tomorrow at noon? Yeah, okay, good.
It's an interesting point. And okay, here's the thing. I, as a comedian and a radio guy, I miss having Fred in the studio and people because I like the sparkly kind of human vibe.
Yes.
That being said, we've had more guests. Like, honestly, Kris, we were always very lucky. People sort of know who we were. So people will go, yeah, I'd come on the show. To your point, though, not everyone wants to drive to the city, find a place to park, sit around for 20 minutes while they wait. We've had more people say yes to us this last 10 months than we would have had before. I'll give you an example. Lisa LaFlamme. She was a big Humble and Fred fan, but there was no way she was going to come down here and do what we just described. But since the pandemic hit, she's like, sure, I'll go to my office for half an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just been like that, nonstop. I would say our guests, definitely marquee-wise, much, much different 2020 than we had previous.
Yeah, I feel like there are no guests that are unattainable now. Like, you could get Dave Grohl, you could get anybody through the right contacts, through the right record people or promotional people, right? Like, it's nothing for them to hop on a Zoom call or hop on whatever,
But you guys, were you sent home right away at your radio?
We didn't go home at all. Melanie and I both, I haven't knock on wood, haven't had a sick day yet this year. And I've been going in every single show. Other than my vacation days, I haven't missed a day. So, for me, it was harrowing. Like during that lockdown time, there were some people, and most shows when I'd see on social media were broadcasting from home, and I was like, shit. But I kind of felt like badass going in every day, during the middle of lockdown. I felt like I was doing some kind of rock and roll duty, to quote Kim Mitchell.
Well, I'm kind of surprised, but also I guess depending on the situation, I've been to your studios. I mean, there's enough room between you and Melanie.
Yeah. Well, we had her down the hall in a different studio, right? So,
okay.
So there was that.
There
So
you
we
go.
still had some distance. We have little cameras. We're still doing it the same way. We have little cameras, so we just see each other. But yeah, we're not in the same room, but we're definitely in the same building. So we still have the same sort of chemistry.
Are you in the same room now, or are you guys still separated?
Still separate.
Well, I've worked with Fred a long time. You've worked with Melanie a long time. I can, because I can sort of, all I need is to be able to see him, and he can kind of signal to me. Like, well, we're either something overt, like pointing to ourselves,
Yeah.
or I can just see when he sits back a little bit, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go for a second. And then when he leans in, I'm like, okay, when I'm finished, he's going to say something.
Yeah.
So that part has been fine. Again, I kind of miss the instant little fun and everything, but, and I'll be honest with you too, like the summertime was great because I can, get off the air and go golfing, but I really have to be mindful that I'm not spending all this time by myself because, I do the show, and then maybe if I may not have one of my kids or my girlfriend may not be coming over. And so I could literally be alone, for a 24-hour period. It's hard that way. So I make sure I get out of the house every day. And again, thank you for inviting me on the Big Kris podcast.
Oh, dude, like honestly, Howard, you were one of the first people I reached out to say, hey, do you want to come on my new podcast? And then it was like one technical thing, and I was like getting down this rabbit hole of, I need to buy a cable to do this. And then I wanted to be able to do that. And then, and next thing you know, it's been 3 months that I've been just putting this thing together, and I've been asking people to come on it. And I've been like, people are saying, hey, I thought you said you were going to bring me on. I'm like, yeah, you're coming on. So finally, I was so happy we could get to you, Howard. And
it's my pleasure. And it sounds like, first of all, the setup sounds great. You're down your rec room there. You got your cool posters. And I'm curious about you, young man. You said there in the intro that you're about. Is this your first kid?
This is first time dad at 40.
That's fine.
Yeah, is that okay?
Is your wife? Well, of course it's okay. Is your wife a little younger than you? Or
she's a couple of years. She's 38. So and I'll be 40 by the time the baby's born. I'm 39 now, but yeah.
I was 38 when my second kid was born, so around the same age as you're going to be. And you know what? It's fine. I mean, you don't know any different. The energy level, like I had a relationship a while back with a slightly younger girl, and she wanted to have.
I think that's when we were doing shows together, maybe. That was
No.
Oh, okay.
I was way past it. Anyway, but she wanted to have babies. And for a while there in my late 40s, early 50s, I was thinking about it. Like, could I be like the 65-year-old dad with a 7-year-old or some shit? And I'm like, it's an energy thing. And you got lots of energy, man. You'll be fine.
I hope so. I'm trying to maintain my energy. I'm doing things now where I'm hoping to like I'm working on my posture and doing different things. I don't know why my posture became so important. I don't know why.
Of all the things I thought you were going to say, posture wasn't. I was working on my diet. I'm working on my diction.
Yeah. I want to have better grammar,
Yeah, working on diction, grammar, and my posture. What? Yeah, I feel that's important for a new...
No. Trans fats, not worried about him at all.
Yeah,
fuck him.
The kid's going to be like, my dad was a fat tub of goo, but his diction was amazing.
Yeah, and he stood tall.
Good for you. And I'm not saying you're a fat tub of goo,
No, it's cool, man. It's all right.
So you're and the baby's going to be born in the spring?
April 11th is the due date. Wow. Yeah, that's a week after my 40th.
They're good. So. Yeah, they're all right. Everyone gets all excited about, babies.
Oh yeah, it's been exciting.
The thing is, they're gross. They're so gross.
Well, that's the one thing I'll tell you, Howard, is that I think, how people are like, oh, it's magic. It's babies are magic. Having a baby is magic. Guess who's getting more magic in this relationship? Me. It's magic for me. My poor wife has been, not sleeping. Because she's got to sleep on their left side, and all the things that go along with it, and it's killing her hip. Her sciatica's out of control. She's getting migraines, and I'm like, honey, are you feeling the magic yet? You feeling the magic? She's no. Right. She wants to murder me, man.
It's funny that do you have a dog? Have you had a dog?
No. I got a lot of allergies. We were thinking about getting a dog right up until, like a hypoallergenic dog, right up until we found out that we were pregnant.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is I had dogs all my life,
Mhm.
and I remember talking to some young parents before we got pregnant, my ex-wife and I remember saying something like, "Oh yeah, babies aren't that big a deal. I mean, I've had dogs all my life," and they were sort of like, they kind of remember them kind of laughing at me, snickering, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, what's the big deal? We'll just, everything will be the same." But here's the thing I would tell you as a parent that you learn. This is part of the dog story. You learn this. First of all, you can't put babies in the cages. They don't like that.
No. If there's
But
anything we learned.
what you learn is this, that your life will change on the date that you're going to have that baby. Definitely changes, but it's not like a bad thing. It changes. It'll never be the same, but you won't care, right? You know how sometimes like you give up certain things in life or you make changes and there's a bit of resistance with parenthood. That's what I found, at least, is that there was this monumental paradigm shift in my life, but I barely noticed it. Like I was like so enamored with the experience.
Yes.
And not to get too heavy, but that's what I would tell you. The takeaway for me was I was never the same again, but I didn't care. Because that thing, it's one thing about that, what they tell new parents is like, wow, magic, all that stuff. It really is something else when it's your kid.
Yeah, I've already been feeling that, right? Like I was saying, I'm feeling the magic. My wife's not, but like, yeah, I feel like, my wife keeps saying to me too. She says, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you reading the books? Are you ready?" I'm like, I've never been more ready in my life. I know my life's going to get turned upside down, like, but I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it in a lot of ways.
Especially now with your new posture, Kris. I think that's.
I spent $27 on this thing on Amazon that's like an 80s police detective brace thing,
Oh, and does it beep?
No, no, it's a medieval one. It had spikes and it would dig into my skin when I would not have correct posture. Yeah.
I'm writing that down because I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Working on my posture. That's fucking funny to me.
Good.
Well, listen, dude. And the other thing is, the last thing I'll say about, unless you want to talk about kids.
Carry on.
I got material about kids. But one thing I would tell you is that having a newborn, it's like you'll grow into it. Like I've never took care of a baby until I had a baby, and then I could never have imagined taking care of a 10-year-old. But you grow into it, right? Yeah. I have 2 daughters right now. One has just turned 26. One's going to be 23. Both of them chirp me endlessly, but it's just wild. I do this joke.
Where do they get the chirping from? They come by it honestly.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like being chirped by piranha that you trained yourself. And they're smart and fast, and I'm old and stoned all the time. And but so you'll grow into it. You'll in 3 months you'll be like, I got this figured out. The first 3 months are like being dropped into a war zone. It's just like shit's happening fast, and this thing is just there, and you're not sure you can keep it alive, but pretty soon you're like, it's like anything else. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, you find
and remember this, way stupider people than you and I have had babies, and they're doing it every day.
Honestly, that has been a consolation. All you have to do is just go to the mall and, see the mom or the dad walking the baby stroller around with, their mask hanging under their nose.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. That's all you need to do.
Let's talk about the pandemic. How's that been? I mean, what a lesson this has been.
Fuck, dude.
Human stupidity.
Really, at its finest, right?
As what?
At its finest, really, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
No, I love all the people. I'm against vaccines, but I wear a helmet when I ride my bike. Oh, do you? Why is that?
Yeah, question that. Yeah. If you look at, I would love to see, maybe 20 years from now, I would love to see a cross-section of study or of statistics as to mental health issues versus QAnon membership or anti-mask rallies. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to go through some of the statistics, if civilization makes it, of course.
Well, exactly. I mean, I know you and Melanie and have been like Fred and I. It's like we talk about we talk about it a lot, obviously. And early on, it was very frightening because you're not sure what tone to take. And, we work Monday through Thursday. And like, since we started on Sirius years ago, we just stopped working 5 days a week. But during the first 3 months of the pandemic, Fred and I actually added a show. Like, it was weird. Like we felt like on Fridays, we should just do a show by ourselves. It was interesting because it's probably the purest podcast we had ever done, because usually we're like this. We have guests, we have a bunch of people.
Yeah, under the big top. Come on in, yeah.
But this was just he and I kind of talking things out. It was kind of fun in a weird way. All this to say that, even though I'm 60 and you're 39, I've never lived through anything like this. I thought 9/11 was going to be like the big thing.
Yeah.
But now it's 9/11 every fucking day. So yeah, it's just been an interesting time to be alive, and a really interesting time, I think, to be a broadcaster. And I'm glad that I'm still doing it in some form,
Yeah, and that's been an important. I felt important, especially during lockdown, for those people who are still out on the road, still driving every day in their cars every day, looking for someone to either give them information, hopefully credible information. We did our best to make sure it was credible, or give them a laugh, or give them a bit of both. And I always pride myself on being able to give you a bit of both, a bit of information that you can use, but also maybe a laugh at the end, or a laugh at the beginning, or all the way through. Who knows? But yeah, it was. I felt important, during that time.
Do you guys? I know you and Melanie play music. How many songs an hour do you play?
Well, right now we're on all Christmas format, and so we're really, because some of those songs are like a minute and a half, so we're probably averaging 15 songs an hour.
But in non-Christmas time, what would you guys do?
We would probably be playing 11 or 12 songs an hour.
Really?
Oh yeah, we have very quick in and out sort of breaks.
So when something like the lockdown first happened, or the early days of the pandemic,
we didn't adhere to any of that.
Did you have a little latitude to maybe
No, it was actually, to be honest, I would say it was so chaotic, just in terms of, whether it was radio management or radio personality sort of trying to catch up to what the hell was going on. I think everyone just appreciated the fact that we didn't cut breaks. We gave the information as long as it took us to get it out there, right? So yeah, that was kind of the attitude there, and everyone seemed on board with it. So, no, it was good, man. On the lockdown, Howard, you mentioned very, very briefly, I was taking notes though, earlier when we were chatting, girlfriend. Now, 2020 has been a lonely year for some people. You had somebody? Because I also read that blow-up doll sales jumped by 25% in 2020 due to coronavirus. You aren't one of those guys, are you? You're not a blow-up doll guy.
Hey, listen, she's not here all the time. I still have needs, for kind of. No, I was lucky. This woman and I have been involved, I think, just past 3 years. She's great. She and I, for the first couple of months, like, we don't live together, but we're basically together a lot of the days of the week. And during the lockdown, we basically stayed together for most of March and April and May, and it was fine. I mean, because again, you've been in my house, I got a lot of space here, so it was good that way. We could come down and work out, or she could go and do some work in another part of the house. But I read something that a lot of people were going through some marital trouble during the lockdown, because you were working from home, people hadn't spent this much time with each other.
Yes. Yeah, I know two for sure COVID divorces. I know two people.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like they split up. Well, there you go. Because it's like, hey, I really don't. Where all of a sudden we're spending 24 hours a day. It's like, you really suck. I don't love you as much as I thought I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely surprised, but again, you never expect, like, some of these couples who you've known and they seemed rock solid, but then all of a sudden they're locked in a house together for 2 months on end, and they discover things, or, sometimes it's not even things. Sometimes it's just, their right nostril whistles in a weird way when they're sitting or sleeping, and that's the thing.
We didn't, you don't know, when this thing first started, you think, okay, I've seen pandemic movies. A lot of us are going to die. I'd like to fuck other people, if that's okay. It's like, if the world is going to end, I'm not having sex with you right up. I mean, I got to go out and see what's out there.
Well, remember too, and this is funny, I think maybe the last time we were on mic together, maybe it was on your show when I was guesting there a couple of years ago, but remember there was that almost missile strike out in Hawaii? And,
yeah. Yes.
And the Pornhub stats just shot through the roof.
Yes.
And yeah, it was because people wanted one last, before they bit the dust, whether they were alone or not, right?
Dude, I forgot that story. That's a great story. And it just shows you the difference between men and women. Because for people who don't remember, there was a story where there was an early warning missile mistake that had basically they thought that they were under attack from a nuclear warhead, and all the people in Hawaii were freaking out. But a certain number of men decided, well, I guess if this is the end of the world, I better jack off one last time.
Yeah, farewell.
Meanwhile, women are like, writing notes to friends and loved ones. And Pornhub spiked. There was about a 10-minute window.
Yeah.
Where they weren't sure if the missiles were inbound, and a number of men went on and looked up MILF Hunter or whatever.
Or whatever their taste du jour was, yeah. Yeah, that's great. Hey, there's some Pornhub news. They've been all over the place lately. I don't know if you follow Pornhub news like I follow it, but
okay, well, please tell me.
No, just today they had to they canceled all of their non-verified accounts. So basically, all the non-verified amateurs who have been uploading the material, the auteurs of this material, it's all been wiped. There's none of that. It's only verified and professional studio releases or verified accounts with them. What's that?
Releases, so to speak.
Yes, really. Yes, yeah. Professional releases.
Well, I would say this about Pornhub. Yes, the old guy is familiar with the Pornhub.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent some time there. Here's my question.
I wasn't sure if you're a RedTube guy or what. Yeah.
What's that, sir?
I wasn't sure if you were a RedTube guy or what your brand was, but
first of all, I'll get back to Pornhub in a second. Yeah. I know of RedTube. What's the difference? Like, what would you say? There's YouPorn, which I find the interface a little bit clunky. Yeah. Especially because I'm trying to do things with one hand, obviously.
Yeah.
Is it called RedTube? What's that one?
Yeah, there's RedTube. It's all just different shades of the same thing. I would say that Pornhub is probably the most professional, and this is just another step in that direction. Just a little more professional and polished service.
Go back to my question, because I need polish when I watch people have sex.
Yeah.
My question about porn in general, and I've been working on this bit for a long time. It is more of just a thought, which is, why are they making new porn? I can't watch the porn they've already made, Chris. I've tried. I have tried to burn through new porn. It's too much.
Yeah, there is a cavalcade. There's an endless amount. If you can't get to the bottom, but there's still, Howard, I think there is people who are out there that have been around since the inception of porn or very early on, and they've been just collectors, if you will, enthusiasts, and they're completely up to date. Like we can't ever catch up. It's like Game of Thrones. There's someone who's been watching it from the beginning, and they watched it to the end. But if you're trying to start Game of Thrones from the beginning, it isn't going to fucking happen for you.
And of course, the porn version of that would be Game of Bones. Thank you very much.
Hey-o.
Thank you. Or Gash of Bones would also work.
Gash of Bones.
I apologize.
One movie they never parodied was Mr. Holland's Opus, and I think there's room there. On that title. There's some wiggle room.
Yes, I would ask you what it is, but I think you're just throwing it out there.
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
That's an interesting point you made. There were some people that have been watching porn, like from the early on part, but we could never, like when I was growing up in the 70s, porn was like your daddy's Playboy.
Yes, tell us, Howard. Tell us about porn in the 70s.
Chris, let me tell you a story about 70s porn. I whacked off to a Sears catalog. That's a true story.
Oh, yeah. National Geo, I heard, was popular as well.
What's that?
National Geo was popular as well, I heard.
I was never a National Geo guy.
No.
But I certainly thought the bra section of the Sears catalog was quite something. But when I remember seeing a naked image of a woman for the first time, and I was like, it was crazy. And you think about now, like it was a big deal. And then I remember seeing a movie for the first time, but now in like 3 clicks, you're like watching a goat fuck a donkey. It's like, what? Anything you can imagine. It's like, and then you realize, and then you see the video and it's like, other people are like, this is the greatest donkey fucking a goat video.
Yeah.
And there's all these people that have loved it. It's too much, is my point, Chris.
Well, you know what? They're thinning out the herd, Howard. Unless that goat is verified on Pornhub, then it's gone. The material's gone. So
you're a young kid, so you won't know that. Like it used to be sexual proclivities were sort of on the dark side of life. And not that I think they should have been, they just were. People's, fetishes were always kind of kept quiet and you didn't really know. And the greatest thing about porn / social media is that, like, if you were a guy that liked to dress, like a baby or something, let's say that was your thing, like you would just be like, it would be like this terrible secret, or maybe a few people on your street were like, oh yeah, there's Kris. He likes dressing like a baby.
You're right,
or
right.
people would just be a rumor. Now you can go to like the Barry Holiday Inn and then there's like 600 guys dressed like babies.
Yeah.
And
Eight
you
thousand
feel
different
less
soothers.
alone. Yes, exactly.
It's brought people together for sure.
Thank you.
It's consolidated fetishes, I think,
Yes.
is the right term.
And then then you can dress like a baby and feel like you're not alone and you're okay.
Yeah. I got a
That's not my thing, by the way, but I have no problem with it.
Okay, good. No, yeah. Hey, whatever floats your boat, right? I always say, let your freak flag fly, whatever that flag may be,
Yeah. As long as you're not asking me to change you, then you're fine.
That's right. Yeah. Fred, I see Humble and Fred behind you. They're the thing.
Yes.
I was going to ask you, just shifting gears here, Howard. You guys stream on Twitch as well, right?
We did for about 18 months, and then we put an end to it. We still have, what we do is we have all the equipment in here, all the cameras are still in here, but
yeah.
But what's your question about Twitch? It's great for some people. I recommend it for some. And our audience wasn't really going to ever adopt Twitch as a form.
You were the first. You were the first sort of podcast / radio people to do it, though. I was going to commend you on at least giving it a shot early on.
Yep.
Normally, I was expecting. I was like, are they going to have some PlayStation controllers in their hands or something?
No, I know. It's so funny. It's so funny you say that, because when we started in January of 2018.
Yeah.
And we streamed on Twitch, and it was fine. Our audience, we had a small portion of our audience. But I didn't realize it was such a gamer platform, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look at some of the big Twitch accounts, and I trying to explain this to like a 60-year-old dude from Milton, like my buddies, they say, "What do you mean Twitch?" I said, "It's basically people watching other people play video games by the millions." But to a guy my age, it's hard to get your head around that,
Yeah. Yeah. I was curious, and now you've answered my question. So, I'm doing the stream here on Facebook. That's where the podcast
so we stream our show every morning.
Yeah.
Our show is live on, two sources. One on the radio station that carries our original show every morning at 7 a.m. We're live for a couple hours on Funny 820 in Hamilton.
Right.
And then we're live on Facebook. But I will tell you, and I listen, I love all the stations that carry us, iHeartRadio and all that stuff. But our podcast still gets more listeners than all the radio stations that carry us combined.
Yeah.
Which is, I think I say that. I know it sounds braggadocious.
No, it's fine, because I want to talk a bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like that. To me, is where our bread and butter is where our sponsors get their most response from. But they also like that they can tell people that they're on the radio, and it's still a radio connection. But that doesn't get us the listeners.
Yeah, I find there's still a fascination with being on the radio from some people, no matter what metrics you show them as to where the audience really is, right? But anyways, I just wanted to give you a shout out, even though you're right there in front of me. But Howard, I remember you guys being the first, in my memory anyways, the first sort of broadcasters to jump into the podcast game. And I remember that it was sort of because you guys just teamed up and based on your own brand, based on the two of you guys said, nah, we think we've got an audience and we're going to put it online. Right. And so now we flash forward to years later. Everything that I've sort of put together on the podcast here, and I thank everybody who was subscribing before via audio for now coming over and checking out the video side of things. But when I was putting it together, I thought about a lot of the different people that I'd met over the years who had made the transition or who I really like what they've done and what they've built. And you were kind of top of that list, Howard. So, so everything
I'll pass that on to the Fred man, because it's something, it's a bit, first of all, I appreciate two things. One, that there's still some people in radio like yourself that sort of understand and recognize just how long we've been doing this. When I first started, we did our very first podcast in December of 2006. We started doing it for a living in October of 2011. And in the world of podcasting, that's like where Marconi stages.
Stone
Like,
Age,
I remember, again, back to my 60-year-old peer group, and they're like, what do you mean you're going to do a show on the internet?
Yeah.
And now it's like podcasts are so micro niche, but in our case, we were the first. Like, it's funny. I was going through some old stuff around the house recently, and I came across the entertainment section of the Toronto Star the weekend of October 11th. That weekend, whatever that Saturday was in October 2011, I could say, and it's like the pod couple was the headline and the picture of me and Fred. It was so new. The guy who wrote the article was having to explain in some detail what a podcast was.
That's a mind blower.
And just as you said, fast forward now, I just listened to a podcast last night. I'm again back to the micro broadcasting of it. The podcast was two guys who were in the cast of The West Wing who go through every episode and talk about it.
Wow.
That's where we're at. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. We have this joke on the show. We always say, now that you're listening to Canada's most uploaded podcast, not downloaded. we've just uploaded more episodes statistically than almost anyone else that's done this. We're close to 3,000 of them.
That's crazy.
But in the end, the old joke about, pioneers get the arrows, settlers get the land. There are lots of people now are first of all, way more popular than we are. But the last thing I'll say about where we're at is, as you know, from you're being a broadcaster, there are tens of thousands of podcasts on Apple iTunes.
Yep.
And I just checked because I wanted to know for sure. Humble and Fred Radio today on the iTunes comedy charts are right now we're 164, which is amazing.
That is.
But like we're ahead of some very famous people. We're ahead of a very famous Toronto broadcaster who still, goes to work in a grown-up rock radio station every day. And, we're doing pretty well for our little, summer mom and pop shop that we have.
Yeah, well, I love it, Howard. And again, it makes me sort of envious. And like I say, having the rec room down here is akin to we have this big, long, tall building, right? So I just come down, much like you go down to your studio. I kind of come down the stairs into my studio. It's the same sort of vibe, right? So anyways, I just have nothing but inspiration from you guys. So I'm so glad you're on. Yeah.
And you know what? And I'll just say, I get as we're wrapping up, I'll tell you one thing about you. I always admired the fact that you had the balls to go and do stand-up. So that was number one. Because there aren't very many, as I told you when we met, there are not very many broadcasters that can do that. I was sort of a comic and then a radio guy. So I had some comedy. I was doing comedy a lot, but very few guys have done what you've done, which is give it a shot. You're very good at it. I mean, we've done, I think, several shows that we've been on together.
Yeah, 5 or 6, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we did a couple of bigger shows.
Big charity ones.
Some charity stuff. But so I always thought that was cool about you. But the other thing too is, like, you've got a nice gig there in Barrie. I know you'd like to work in the city; it's closer, but you got a nice gig there. But should you ever lose that job, unlike when broadcasters 20 and 30 years ago would get fired, there was nowhere else for them to go.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're doing this now,
thank you,
gives you some. First of all, it's great for your chops. But it's also good for your audience, because if they said you can't come to work tomorrow, you could just come down the stairs, start broadcasting, and find your way. And I think that's great, young man.
Thank you, Howard. And lastly on this, I will just wish you a happy Hanukkah, because I know that we're in the Hanukkah week right now. That's all I know really about it. Other than that, I remember as a kid, maybe I was like, hey, it would be cool to be Jewish because I could get 8 days of presents. But, that's just a selfish third grader.
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I will take your Hanukkah wishes, and I will wish you a Merry birthday of the Jesus. And give my best to everyone there in Barrie. Thanks very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you. Humble Howard, everyone. Thanks for checking us out on the live stream, and then it'll be available later on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again.